Last quarter in 2022 was a wild time for AI, especially image and text generation applications gone viral. So many achievements happened in so short time that we already started using some of these applications in our daily lives. And what I think is we haven't even seen enough practical use of these technologies just yet. And what I believe is one industry that is going to make incredible use of all of these technologies is game development. And today I want to show you how you can make use of OpenAI's API in Unity game engine and create an image generator in a ChatGPT-like chat application that you can directly use in Unity game engine and contribute to your games already. So without further ado, let's take a look at that. First thing we will have to do is creating an OpenAI account. You can start with a free account to learn and test OpenAI's capabilities. First, go to openai.com and click on the API button on the right top side. Click on the login button on the corner again and create yourself an account. You can either provide email and password or log in via Google or Microsoft accounts. Once you are logged in, you will be greeted with tutorials and examples page on how to use OpenAI API, and feel free to wander the examples and get inspiration and learn more about how you can make use of it. There's even a playground page where you can test different things. What is most important for us is the documentation of OpenAI. I follow this doc strictly to write the Unity wrapper myself for this video. You can read more about the text completion and image generation requests here and see examples about how they work. All of them are in the documentations. If you click on your profile and click on View API Keys button, you can go to the page where you can find your API key, which we will use for making these requests. You will be able to see this key only once, so make sure you saved it before closing the window when it shows up. And please do not forget, this secret key is very important. You should not share it with anybody, and you should only use it on server-side applications. Actually, using it in Unity is not something favorable. We still will keep the key in your local, but if you publish an application just like this, third parties might interfere and get your API key, and if they use it, you might face huge bills because someone else is using your API key. So please be careful. This example is just to test and learn OpenAI's capabilities and see how it works in Unity. This package is to demonstrate, of course, how it works, so please be cautious. And finally, there is an organization ID, which you can optionally use if you have multiple organizations in your account. So what we will definitely need is an API key and optionally an organization ID. First, let's start with creating a Unity project. I will pick a 3D Unity project with version 2020. This should work with any Unity version that has package manager. And here is my GitHub account where I have OpenAI Unity repository. You can also follow through the README file and see how this works. Copy the GitHub URL that ends with .git here when you see after clicking the green button, and come back to Unity. Now go to Window menu, open Package Manager, then wait for it to finish refreshing, then click on the big plus button. It will show 3 options or 4 depending on Unity version. Select the Add Package by Git URL and paste the URL we just copied from GitHub. Click Add button, then it will fetch Unity package and install it. Here you will see 2 sample projects in Package Manager. One is a ChatGPT-like example and another one is image generation example. We will check both of these examples, so make sure to import them. In the package manager itself and on GitHub, you can check the code and the summary of the functions to understand their use better. Also, do not hesitate to go and check OpenAI documentations along with it. So let's open the ChatGPT example and test it. But before, we will need to set our credentials locally. Otherwise, results will fail since we do not have an API key in the requests. Go to your device's user folder. In Windows, it should be users/ your username, and in Mac and Linux, it should be the tilde folder. Here, create an .openai folder, which is the general convention of how to store local credentials. Inside the .openai folder, create a JSON file called auth.json. Make sure this is not a text file, but a JSON file. Sometimes your operating system might hide extensions and you might end up with a auth.json.txt file. So better to check that twice. This file and folder names matter since the package will try to read it from exactly there. If you want to change those, make sure to edit the configuration script so you find the right folder. Structure of the JSON should be like how it is in the README file. We will have an API key and an organization field in this file. So organization is of course optional. Now go to your OpenAI account, find your API key and create one and copy the value. And also you can get the organization value, organization string and save it as well. Paste these two into quotes and save the file. Again, do not share your credentials with anybody and make sure to use them only in server-side code. Alright, let's get back into Unity and open the GPT sample scene and run it. So we have a text field, a button, and the text area. I'll just type, "Hi, how are you?" and we get the answer. "I'm good, how about you?" I'll say I'm working on a Unity and OpenAI tutorial. Let's say tutorial video. And reply is, "Wow, that sounds really cool. What have you learned so far?" And I will reply, "I learned that I can use OpenAI in Unity and it's pretty cool. Send it." And that's really cool. What kind of things you do with OpenAI and Unity? I can complete text and generate images from prompts. Let's send it. Wow, that's really impressive. What kind of applications do you see for this? I believe many games will use this for example, for let's say NPC creation, storytelling, and so on. Let's send it. That's really great idea. What kind of games? Yada yada yada. You see, it just keeps coming with new answers to you. What I want to break down is I want to tell you how that actually works. So the basic thing behind this is actually text completion. You can go to documentation and check what text completion is. You give an input and the AI figures out what is the most likely answer to complete that text with. To be able to keep a chat history, like a memory there, and answer things, this is the structure we will go for. Let's make it larger. So if I just said, "Hi, how are you?" I would just get answers like, "What a nice day." Because think this way, it completes the sentence. How are you could be completed with, "What is your name?" So to begin with, I have this instruction. Act as a random stranger in a chat room and reply to the questions. So I don't want it to just complete a random sentence, but I want a question answer like structure. So I have my act as a random stranger in a chat room instruction. Then I have a question. Then I add my input right after that. And after adding my input, I add the answer area. So imagine ChatGPT will actually complete this sentence. Act as a random stranger in a chat room, then "Hi, how are you?" Then answer the completion. So the reply we get for the answer is what ChatGPT will give us. All right, then let's say it replies us with, so let's say I'm saying, hi, how are you? Then it will reply with, fine, how about you? Then after receiving the answer from ChatGPT with the completion API, which is fine, how are you? This is what I get back. I append a question field, then I get the user input from the input box. Let's say my name is Sarge. And right after getting the input, I add the answer area. Then again, I send this whole thing back to the completion API. So it reads the same thing again, but with its answer and my new answer, and we ask it to complete this. Then it will say, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, Sarge. So now it has some history of my name. I will append the question. Then I will add the user input, which let's say in this case is, what is my name? And then I will append answer area, and then I will wait for it to complete this. The cool thing is now we have a chat history. I will already send this whole text. From the context, it will know what my name is, and most probably it will reply that your name is Sarge. So this is how ChatGPT can keep it on the context. So it doesn't forget what you discussed, but keeps going, refers back to what you talked before. This is how this works. You can keep sending the whole history of the chat, and it's gonna feel like it knows what you discussed before. What I guess the trick with that is this, and this is how it works. So I made this basic loop for this. You can alter the instructions above and then add question, answer, get the input from the user, get the answer from the chat, the completion API, and pretty much run this. So in the script, initially we have these input fields, the button and the text, and I create a OpenAI API object, and I have a user input and instruction private strings. The instruction is what we start with, and it keeps expanding on it. In the start method, I bind the button, and then every time user clicks the button, send reply takes the information that is inside the answer or the question you have, and it sends it to the function to be processed. First of all, I get input fields text and set it into user input. Also append it to the instruction, and then go one line below and add my answer area, just like that. So act as a random stranger, yada yada question, then I add my answer after the question, then I add answer field, and I clean my UI, set the input fields and all, lock them, disable them so user do not interfere with those. Then I send this information to the completion, create completion of OpenAI. So I have a create completion request object. It can take quite many parameters there. The required one is model and prompt, so we can already send them. You can go to documentation and see what kind of models are there. For text completion, the best one is Text DaVinci 003. This is the latest, the best one, so you can just use it. The other ones are there as well. Maybe they are faster. I do not really know, to be honest, but this is the latest. This is also what we set here. In the prompt, we set the instruction, the entire chat history that we are sending. And max tokens is how many words and punctuations you might get as a result. So the default is 16. It's quite small, to be honest. If we go to documentation and check the description of the max tokens, there's a link to that, and we can actually test a text to see how many tokens it has. So if I write how are you question mark, it is going to show me 5 tokens. So it is each word plus the question mark and how many characters are there. So this is how that works, pretty much guessing the next token of that sentence. So the value I set in the example is 128, so you can make it, like 2048, or this is the maximum, and you would get like very, very long answers. So depending on what kind of applications you are making, you can have different values there. And there's so many other things, like small tweaks and stuff. Just read the instructions, read the details here, and set them accordingly. But prompt, model, and max tokens should be just sufficient for us in this context. And after that, we will receive a completion response, which contains the data we get back from the create completion endpoint. So it has ID, object, created date, model, and choices. This is the one that we are going to use. Choices is an array of data that's sent back to us, the completion data, and it has the text field in it. This is the most important thing for us. So what we want to get is the first choices text. So after we receive our answer back from OpenAI, we pick the first of choices and the text and set this in the text area so we can see the AI's answer to us. We see the answer, and also we append the answer into the instructions and go down with /n and add our question. So enable the UI so we can give something back to the system. Then again, we fill the field, click on the button, it's appended, answer goes there. We ask the machine, it gets something back to us, and the chat history increases and increases and increases. On top of that, for example, you can do edits, like correcting the sentence that user provided, or add moderations, like if the user input was some kind of violence, hatred, sexual content, so you can actually block those kind of things and give ready answers. This is also possible. In this basic example, we pretty much have no protection of those, but you can definitely add on top of it. So the chat example is pretty much this. And so we can switch to the DallE example, the image generation. It's also quite basic, to be honest, more simpler than the chat example. In the documentation, we can go to Images tab, and we have three options: image generation, image edit, and image variations. You can upload one image, so you can give a prompt and create an image. You can provide the image a mask to edit that, the mask with transparent area to be edited. So the transparent pixels will be changed with the prompt you provide, and variation provides you different versions of the image you generated. For the image edit, I have some examples, images in the test folder, and also image tests. You can take a look. For example, image I want to edit might look like this, and the mask I provided is this. So the center area is a mask that I want to change the pixels with. The test I wrote for this was adding a flamingo there, which is there's a similar thing in the documentation, so I use the same approach, and that is that. In this example, it just creates the image. Again, we provide the prompt, you click on the button, wait for the image to be generated. The example text in the documentation was a cute baby otter. So let's try that. And let's send it. It's gonna take a little longer than the text. And then we should get the image. So we have a baby otter there. And let's change it to, let's say, Lego car. So of course you can improve your descriptions as much as you like. So I want to go with basic things and quickly get something. Here is our Lego car. And this is very simply how it works. Let's take a look at the script. The setup is pretty similar to what we've seen before. This time we have an image field and create an OpenAI API object, setting the button, and then cleaning up the screen and locking the buttons so user cannot spam the service with requests. This time we make a create image request to OpenAI with a create image request object. Not here, so let's go to the DallE example, create image request object, and let's scroll down. So let's open this region about image API data types, and then we have the base that has all the details, and the what image request has extra is prompt. So n is how many objects we get back. Size is the size of the image. We have three options: 256, 512, and 1K resolution images. And the response could be either a URL or a base64 JSON. So these are the other options you have for receiving the results. The default is the URL. This is all we need. So we get the prompt from the input field and set the size. I want it to be quick, so I set the smallest resolution. We make our request and we get the data back. Again, you can get multiple answers depending on the n value you set. I will pick the first data, check URL. Depending on the prompt you provided, there might not be a response at all. So that's the reason we do a null check. And I create a Unity web request to download this URL and wait for it to finish. Once it finishes, I create a new texture and then load the image from the byte array data that we received from the download handler, create a new sprite using this texture, and set that sprite to the element we have in the UI. So that needs to be done. And again, if no data received, we can just log warning about no image was generated. And right after that, we enable the items in the UI and we can go back. So this is that simple. So this is how these two examples work. Let's finally try Spider Super Batman. I don't know. So that works that simple. You can, try directly this in Unity. It might be, like for anything, creating player backgrounds or profile photos or stuff like that. You imagine it. And so this is pretty much that. The GitHub repo is available publicly, and thank you so much for watching. I want to add like a second video to this, making some kind of a NPC chat thing with Ready Player Me, and hopefully I can provide something like that to you guys next week, and you can see how that would be in action with Ready Player Me. Up until then, thank you so much and see you soon.